here's what I know. Someone's going to have to start to fight for Nebraska, all right? So I'm here to fight for Nebraska. And finally, the team grows up. It's what people always ask me about year 3. Finally, the team grows up, and they're like, well, I got to go make the play.
It's time to join the Husker Huddle with Nick Handley and Grant Hansen.
Hey, welcome into another Husker Huddle here as we get into the month of December alongside Grant Hansen. I am Nick Handley. Appreciate you checking out the Husker Huddle. This is episode number 18 as we get into sort of a weird time of the year. First and foremost, happy to say that wasn't the last football game that we saw in the 2025 season for Nebraska. That would have been a bad one to end on, but we do know Nebraska's bowling there. 7-5. We'll get into the whole success, not a success, and what have you, but 7-5 likely to a December 31st bowl game in Las Vegas, although there has been a little recent momentum with potentially going to Nashville on the 30th.
I'm going to issue a guarantee of Las Vegas.
The Grant Hansen guarantee.
I know. I'm not really going that far out on a limb, but it's going to be
How
Vegas.
good is that guarantee? Is that like the
Tommy?
Is this like the Tom Callahan Tommy Boy guarantee?
This is the first thing I've ever guaranteed on this show.
What do they say? I can do something in a box and mark it guaranteed, but yeah, okay. Anyway, or the bowl, or the old Bulls rear end. Yeah. Oh gosh, we got to get you on Tommy Boy, but there's a lot to get into between now and the bowl game, whatever that is. Likely at the end of this month, and we have signing day going on this week.
Today, or as we record it today.
Yep.
Which is interesting, too, because I'm sure we'll discuss at some point the whole situation with Penn State and how that's playing out. So as we discuss those things later on, keep in mind this is Wednesday. As of now, everybody's turned Penn State down, but, I mean, a few hours from now, it could be different.
Coaching carousel, speaking of Penn State, a lot of pieces still up in the air. Some, as we know, LSU and Ole Miss. I know that whole little messy divorce. Just a lot happening in college football, but also especially here locally in the state of Nebraska when it comes to this football program. Nebraska looking for a new defensive coordinator. So we're going to get into all of that here on the show. Going to be talking to Michael Bruntz of Husker 24/7 Sports. He's going to be joining us a little bit later on this month with Mike Schaefer and with Brian Christopherson. And now I can officially say Lincoln R. Neal, as we're going to be having our Huskers Live on Tap. We'll tell you about that later over at Cross Train Brewing. But Bruntzy all over not only signing day, but his thoughts from the Iowa game, his thoughts on a lot of big ticket items for this Nebraska football program as they pivot into 2026, because now you're going into a very important year 4. That year 3 jump didn't happen by a lot of people's expectations. A lot of the talking part, I know, is our friend Steve Sipple said the honeymoon, all of those things with Matt Rule is behind you now. Now it's all about taking this program from, okay, established bowl eligibility for the last 2 years. What does that next step look like? So we're going to get into all of that because that's a very important part of this offseason. But as I mentioned, we're going to be talking to Michael Bruntz, Husker 24/7 Sports. Also going to be having a conversation with a Nebraska football player in, are we doing Derek Branch today? Or are we doing Michael Booker?
We're going to roll with Mr. Booker.
Michael Booker.
Really cool thing last week that Nebraska did and Matt Rule did in terms of sort of showcasing some of the seniors on this year's team that have flown under the radar a little bit. And Booker is one of those guys, and you get to find out a lot about him. Really, really cool guy, a piece of Nebraska special teams. So Nick chats with him later on the show. I really wouldn't miss that.
Yeah, it was. I wanted to ask, do you babysit too? Because he's one of those kids I would trust to watch my 5-year-old son. He's just an absolute stand-up person. And 2 minutes into the conversation, I'm like, you're awesome. Just a great person. And talked to Derek Branch as well. You could see that on Huskers All Access earlier this week too. Another tremendous local guy that had some contributions on special teams too. So you're right. Just a lot of the opportunity to get to know not only the seniors of what they've done on the field, but more importantly with those two guys, especially the things that they've done off the field. And then of course we'll have mailbag questions. We also have some championship score predictions. We got conference championships going on this weekend. Unfortunately, Nebraska's not a part of that. And of course, we always appreciate you being a part and taking in this show throughout the season. I can't believe we're already done with the regular season, but Grant, you can always find ways to follow us.
Yeah, go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube page here at Performance Podcast. Give us a like on this podcast and drop your thoughts on the show in the comments section if you would be so kind. If you are listening to us on Spotify or Apple, give us a rate and a review there. That'll help drive us up the charts as we sort of start to build this thing out here at the tail end of the first regular season for Nebraska football. We'll see what the rest of the year has in store. We'll take you up to about December 18th with shows. We'll take a break for the holidays, reassess after that what we're going to do for 2026 and all those sorts of things. So stay tuned for that. But again, thanks for riding with us this season. We got plenty to cover here in this month. We only have the one game, but the news has come fast and furious over this course of this week, and a lot of what you'll see is it'll be a slower December, I think, maybe than what we've seen in years past with the transfer portal rules and all of that sort of stuff. But you'll still have guys declaring, and we'll see what else happens with coaching cycles and all those sorts of things.
Yeah, and of course, doesn't hurt that volleyball is now beginning to drive for a national championship. And all of a sudden, women's and men's basketball looking pretty damn good right now, too. So I'm sure we'll get into those things here before we wrap for the year. It is time for our Prime Cuts, brought to you by Omaha Steaks, your go-to for game day, from sizzling steaks to all of your tailgate favorites. They've got you covered. Omaha Steaks, proud partner of Nebraska Athletics. Here's this week's Omaha Steaks Prime Cuts.
I love John Butler. John's an amazing coach, an amazing person. And it's just, he did a lot of great things for us. It just wasn't exactly the right fit for me and the way I am, and so it's probably more me than anything else. And he'll go on and have a ton of success, and his character, his work ethic were unmatched. But it was just, just the right fit for us moving forward. And we're not gonna change everything, though. I think that was the main message to the recruits. I want someone who it's not scheme, it's our play style and how hard we play. The reality is, the last 2 weeks we haven't played hard enough. We were not the more physical team, and we had done that a lot of times. There's a play style that we want, and I think it was on display early in our tenure here. It has not been on display quite as much. And even though the numbers were good, in this league, in this stadium, you better stop the run the football. And it's easy just to throw it on the players. I don't throw things on the players. There's only one rule working for me, and that's don't tell me the players aren't good enough. Don't ever say that to me. I don't know that he is. I think that kind of the role he's in, I think is a great role for coach. Goes out and shuts the guys out in the bowl game. I might, but coach is at a stage in his career where, I think he's in a perfect role for him, and I think he's kind of like the Yoda of our office. Yeah, and congratulate. There's a ton of guys signing a lot of different places, and we're really, really happy for them. And I think over 3 years, our commitment to recruiting the state has been really, really solid. Some of the other ones didn't quite work out. Some of the other ones got offered early and they didn't want to come camp with us. It's just all those things happen. But my hope is always that everyone ends up in the right place. What I'd rather guys go somewhere and be happy than be unhappy but be in state. I met with Emmett yesterday and just once again reassured him that no matter what he did, we love and respect him, and would support whatever decision he makes. He's got a tough one. This was an easy decision a couple years ago, before NIL and before all those things. It's a tougher decision now, but it's his decision. And so, he's at the workouts. He's doing everything.
That is this week's Omaha Steaks Prime Cuts, brought to you by Omaha Steaks, your go-to for game day. From sizzling steaks to all of your tailgate favorites, they've got you covered. Omaha Steaks, proud partner of Nebraska Athletics. First and foremost, we'll say this: Phil Snow will not be the defensive coordinator for Nebraska.
No, I think
that's like the nicest way Matt Rhule could say, no, he's not going to be. Love him. And if they shut him out, great. But yeah, we're going to.
That's a good
thing.
That's
a
role. A good thing to say, to clear up for people. I don't think Nebraska is going to promote anybody from within to fill John Butler's seat. I know there's some people that have maybe pined for Mike Eckler to slide into that spot. I think if Nebraska was going to promote from within, it was going to be Addison Williams. I don't think they will. I don't think it's the right decision to do that, whether it's Williams or Eckler. I know Nebraska looked at other options when handing the ball off to John Butler about this time last year. Matt Rhule said he saw 5 or 6 different guys that he considered as candidates. Generally, and I know there are some exceptions to this rule, my belief with hiring coaches, it's very, very rare that the guy for the job has been in your building all along.
Yeah.
I don't think it's very common that that's the case. And I think not looking outside or seriously looking outside your building usually gets you hurt. In the end, it's essentially choosing being comfortable. So I don't think they're going to do that. I think they'll go outside, and there's some intriguing names out there. I'm sure we'll discuss that more as the month plays out. The other thing that was interesting too is Matt Rule said, look, it would be nice to have the defensive coordinator in place before the portal opens in January, but they're not going to compromise on who they get in terms of the options that they have maybe in front of them in order to get that done before January. So that's another important piece of context too, is he kind of shares how they're going to go about filling this role.
That's where I think it is important to have guys like he mentioned. Addison is not going anywhere, at least right now. I mean, there's this whole idea if you bring in an outside defensive back or defensive coordinator that he's going to bring in a brand new staff with him. And Tony White brought in some core guys with him.
And then the other piece of that too, it seems pretty clear. I mean, I would assume a large percentage of that defensive staff is safe, but you don't know. Maybe Rob Dvorak. Maybe Rob Dvorak moves on. Maybe somebody comes calling for him as a potential.
He's a rising star.
Defensive coordinator. Yeah. He's been thought of as a rising star for a long time. But it seemed very clear that Addison Williams will be here no matter what. Yeah. I mean, that was interesting and like kind of side thing that got thrown in there that Addison is going to be here no matter what Nebraska does. So, I mean, but do you make changes at other positions on this coaching staff?
Yeah, you think about the defensive line. That was the area that just was beat up quite a bit when it came to stopping the run. Terry Braden comes over from the Kansas City Chiefs. You replaced Terrence Knighton from a year ago. Terrence Knighton did such an outstanding job with that group. But the thing about not maybe having a DC, maybe in time for the portal window, this is where I do think of Phil Snow's role being a very key one because he's sort of the overseer of the defense. He's not the DC, but he's a guy that can at least be that bridge if they need to wait to get that quality defensive coordinator.
Matt Rule should be able to sell the picture.
Absolutely.
But
that's his area of expertise
they want it done.
as well.
I mean, I don't think you can really...
But you don't want to rush something. This is an important hire, very important hire.
He says that at the same time, you better believe that they're doing everything that they can within their power to get their top choice here before January.
Yeah, and I don't see why you wouldn't be able to do that.
I mean, it's a no-brainer.
I did see this. This was kind of a fun little anecdote because I don't think it's going to ever happen. But there were some on Florida State's message boards that are thinking Tony White had such a tough time over in Tallahassee, going to come right back over to Lincoln. How awkward would that be?
Oh, that would be weird.
Be very, very awkward.
I don't know. I mean,
would he bring T. Knight with him too?
Yeah, and James Williams.
Which people wouldn't hate.
I think you'd probably leave James Williams in Tallahassee.
Got any more eligibility?
Anyway, so but Will Cox is out there. Leonard is out there. I mean, I think for Husker fans, those two guys are probably at the top of the list for a lot of people. Maybe you go, his name escapes me right now. There's been some buzz around the DC at TCU.
Yeah.
So there's some early names, kind of percolating out there. I think it's very, very rare that they end up hiring the guy that is the opening salvo of names that come out there. It's very rare that I feel like that the hire is among that group of the first people, people think of. So we'll see. As it comes to John Butler, as we close the book on him, we talked about it all year. It didn't really feel like that the defense necessarily had a true identity. I don't know if I expected this. I think it makes sense. One thing that you can really say about Nebraska under Matt Rule is they're incredibly honest. Top to bottom. I think that's sort of become a part of the culture, especially when it comes to the media. He is about as open of a book as you can get. And that comes down to the coaching staff too, right? Like we heard from John Butler all year long, even sometimes down to the specific play where things went wrong. So I give them a lot of credit for that. Even in losses, I think for the positives for John Butler, that's one thing that'll stick with me. But ultimately, you listen to what Matt Rule was saying about them not being able to stop the run, and you need to be able to run the ball and stop the run in the Big Ten, and Nebraska couldn't do it this year to save their life. And, whether that's execution, whether that's players, it doesn't really matter. And you heard Matt Rule say it in that last bit too about don't tell me that the players on this team aren't good enough, which you wonder. Do you wonder in so many words if John Butler said that in a certain way, maybe not those specific words, but was getting at that?
Right.
There was a couple other bits in there that were interesting that weren't necessarily shots, but they kind of gave you a window into what you were maybe lacking with Butler in terms of the comments about effort.
Yeah.
Effort first and foremost. And I for Nebraska fans, that's going to resonate because you give up 70+ points over the last 2 games to 2 teams that, well, look, there's really no business ever giving up 40 points to an Iowa offense. And Penn State the next week was in a dogfight with Rutgers. Right. And so you to see that as a fan, that's sickening. And it's not like Nebraska is completely devoid of talent on that defensive side of the ball, although they are worse up front, certainly, than when they had 2 5+ year college football players that are grown-ass men. They're worse, but they're not devoid of talent to the point that they would be doing those sorts of things. And ultimately, it comes back and falls on the coaches. And Nebraska was second to last in Division I over 136 teams in red zone defense. Only team that was worse was Rice, who allowed teams to score on all 37 red zone possessions that year. And it's not like any of that's a secret. Nebraska was worse against the run. They did not create enough sacks all year long. They, I don't believe, forced a turnover over the final 6 weeks of the season. I mean, all of these different things that are important metrics that, yes, you can look at the total defense number and feel some type of positive feeling about that. But when it comes to putting your offense in good positions and making it tough on your opponents, Nebraska just did not do that all year long. And ultimately, that falls on the defensive coordinator. And eventually, if Matt Rule doesn't get this hire right, it'll fall on the head coach too.
It's without question the most important hire that Matt Rule has had to make now going into his 4th year, if we're counting this upcoming 2026 season. And I think that's a good point you bring up there about finding a DC that it won't take long before you know exactly what their identity is with this defense.
A gaping hole.
And I think about watching this defense throughout the season, and one area that I was hoping to see, because it wasn't present early on, but you hoped that whole development vibe that Matt Rule brings in all facets of his program, offensively, defensively, special team, just seeing young players develop. I wanted to see more out of Riley Van Poppel. Riley Van Poppel, to me, looks the part.
Did you find that disturbing?
I did.
Not only him not eventually getting there, but the fact that, look, I did not feel like he played well the last couple of games.
I didn't either.
And Matt Rule said in the press conference on Wednesday they thought he played better on that against Iowa.
Yeah,
I did not see that.
And okay, I'm glad you brought that up, because there's development that maybe you and I and other people won't be able to see every day.
Right.
But
right.
I'm now
we don't have the full picture.
I'm now at that point where I want to be able to see it with my eyes against teams that have that physical.
And at the same time, like,
presence.
We don't have the whole day-to-day picture.
Yeah.
But the picture that we do see fully, is the games.
Yes.
And that's the only picture that really matters.
And there's some examples. I think when he brought up Williams-Nwaneri, I think, you could see
Keanu
him
Davis
coming.
is a
you
good
could
example.
see Keanu Davis
Rex
coming.
Guthrie did not, necessarily end the season well, especially in those last 2 games.
But he was a factor throughout the year.
But he's played, he's
Donovan
improved.
Jones is a
that
player.
That guy's a dog.
There's a player there. Javen Wright, you're going to have to replace. But when I think of that linebacking core, and hopefully you still have Rob Dvorak, because I think he is essential to that. I think you have dogs at inside linebacker, more of those guys.
You missed on Marquess Watson-Trent. Yep. I mean, he was not the level of a contributor that you expected him to be.
Right. I think that's where I want to see when it comes to that improvement, that development of, okay, I don't want you to have to explain to me why that development is taking place and these guys got better. I want to be able to just say it without even ever having to ask a question, because my eyes are telling me, because I'm watching in games like that, especially in the final stretch of the season. Those guys are making major impact plays, especially on the defensive line. Those guys are disruptive in the backfield. And unfortunately, we just didn't see that enough, especially against teams like Penn State and Iowa, that it was going to be paramount to have that happen if you wanted to have success.
It came back to, again, we talked about it in the or the preseason. I wanted to see havoc. I felt like Nebraska in year 1 under Tony White did a really fantastic job at that. Last year, it was good, but it certainly wasn't as good as year 1.
Yep.
And this year was the worst it's been under Matt Rule, and it's not particularly close. Like, you need that disruption piece of the puzzle that was just completely devoid of any sort of presence on this year's defense.
Where you put the secondary that was going into the season of strength, and I still think was the strength of this team.
I mean, if you had to point to an identity for the defense, it was defending the pass. But that disappeared down the stretch, and that's the other part of it.
It did because you had to send extra bodies to try to get that pressure on the quarterback.
And how much of the pass defense, too, and somebody brought this up. I don't know if it was you or somebody else. I can't remember who it was, but it was a really good point. So credit to whoever they are.
It's got to be me then, of course.
But how much of Nebraska's good numbers against the pass came from teams just realizing we can run it all over these guys and I'm not going to throw the ball?
Brought that up before the Penn State game.
It's not necessarily all that, but I think that does have to play some level of the way that we look back and evaluate this in hindsight.
Yeah, and again, I think it comes
not 100% of it, but
comes down to it's a massive hire that Matt Rule is going to have.
Yeah.
I think first and foremost is being able to establish that type of identity. And I think that identity, especially surviving in the Big Ten, I don't want to say survive anymore because I think now you're beyond, this program needs to do more than just survive.
Right.
You need to be able to elevate with all the resources, the money that's being put into this outfit, that you've got to do better than survive. And I think when it comes to the Big Ten and having success, think about the elite teams. Think about Oregon. I know they're always known as this speed team that has this great offense, but they are
not
physical.
Under Lanning.
They are a Big Ten ready-made team.
They have been the biggest thing that has stuck with me about Oregon has been its defense.
Yep, and their offensive line is solid.
Yeah,
those guys.
You got to win in the trenches. Nebraska got whooped in the trenches all year long.
Look at Indiana.
And this is the other thing too, with Rocco Spindler not playing the bowl game. This will be something that'll be interesting to me because you talked about wanting to see development along that offensive line. Well, you're going to have a hole at guard that you're going to have to fill. Is it Sam Sledge? Is it Jason Machachak who comes in there?
Preston Samoa.
There are guys that could fill that role that are developmental pieces that have been waiting in the wings for 2 years that could play very, very big pieces, roles next year. That'll be the intriguing piece for me, just like it was a year ago when we saw Vincent Shavers sort of come out and we got to see different pieces for Nebraska. Maybe does Carter Nelson see anything?
Yeah.
Any sort of expanded anything.
There's one to keep an eye on, too, during this offseason for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. A lot to discuss. We're going to do so with Michael Bruntz of Husker 24/7 Sports here in just a moment. But we are getting closer and closer to Christmas, to the holidays. They are upon us.
I'm taking advantage of this, by the way.
You should be, because I don't care if it's your best friend, if it's your mom and dad, if it's anybody that you at least remotely care about. We're going to make gift giving so easy for you. Just get them a box of Omaha steaks. We're talking about, the famous filet mignon that everybody loves, that USDA certified beef that we've talked about. Once you cut it and have that first taste of Omaha steaks, you're going to know why we rant and rave about how great it is. And you can do the best gift you've done all year. There is not one person that is going to say, oh, really? This is it? They are going to thank you, and you've just all of a sudden set the gold standard for gift giving if you give them a box of Omaha steaks.
I'm going to capitalize on that. The person who's getting this doesn't know it.
Oh.
So
thank you.
We'll keep it that way.
Oh,
it's not you.
You shouldn't have.
It's not you.
So apparently you don't care about me.
Same pig on Gourmet favorites and more this holiday season with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide during the Sizzle All the Way sale. And for an extra $35 off, use promo code HUDDLE at checkout. Terms apply. See site for details. That's omahasteaks.com. Use code HUDDLE.
All right, time to get into all of the off-season big-ticket items, including roster and the bolstering of the roster, which took place on National Signing Day on this Wednesday as we record. And who better to talk to than Michael Bruntz of Husker 24/7 Sports. You're not only going to see him right now and hear him right now, but you're also going to see him with us on December 16th out at Cross Train Brewing in La Vista for our Huskers Live on Tap show. Looking forward to that. Bruntz, how are you?
Not bad. Good to be with you both again. How are things?
Well, see, Grant's laughing at me right now because I can't go any further without saying, when's the last time in December you and I had a chance to conversate and be able to talk about teams that have the same color scheme and they are both playing very well and their mascot starts with a B? Your Broncos, my Bears. How about us?
Is it a Super Bowl preview?
Ooh, might be.
Or we could both commiserate probably once our teams get knocked out in the second round of the playoffs. But
that sounds more likely. That's
it.
I feel more confident about your team getting into the playoffs. I still, as fun as this whole thing has been with Chicago, they got to get there.
You're thinking
first.
they're going to just implode?
They got to get to the tournament.
Jeez.
They got to get to 11 wins. If they get to 11 wins, I'll feel good. But if you go get a Bo Nix jersey, I'll get a Caleb Williams jersey, and we'll watch games together. How about that?
Okay.
All right, good.
Okay, we can do that.
Okay, cool. All right, now in matters that are more serious to our state and our great state of Nebraska, before we get into National Signing Day on what was more of a lean signing class, the postmortem, if you will, of Iowa, and I think this can even extend back to Penn State as well. When you see the way that the season ended for Nebraska, when people ask you, Michael Bruntz, 7-5, it's one win better than it was a year ago. There was some strides that were made, but in your opinion, was 2025 year 3 a success for Matt Rule?
No, I mean, I think you can say there was progress in some areas. Like I think it's a slow build. I think you have to consider, the schedule that was in front of Nebraska. You had kind of the big ticket games where you had a chance to beat, a named team and kind of take that step as a program and finally kill off that superlative of not having beaten a ranked team since 2016, and you weren't able to do that. I think it's baby steps, but I don't know that. This felt like a year where maybe there was more progress to be had, and more ground to be gained, in part because of, I think we put a lot of weight in year 3 with Matt Rule and what that means. But, I mean, you had, the best running back that Nebraska's had in a decade, and you weren't able to really kind of capitalize on that. You didn't kind of reset the deck after losing some key defensive players, and that ended up being what cost you in the last couple games. I mean, in all the losses, I mean, they gave up 231 on the ground in the 5 games they lost. But I think it's the way that the season ended and the way in which it ended, with not being able to stop the run, with looking just disjointed on offense. If it wasn't Emmett Johnson doing the running of the ball, that's a concern, and it's it kind of takes away a little bit from the work that you did at the start of the season and seemed like you were kind of building in the right direction. So you're left with an offseason now where you're hiring a new defensive coordinator, you're reassessing everything, reassessing assistants, and kind of how you're going about things, which is an important thing to do. But I think it would be a little bit nicer to do that, sitting at 8-4 right now, or even better than where you're currently at. So I can, if you told me, yeah, there's progress, I would buy that. But it felt like there was an opportunity this year that was missed that, you look ahead to next year, what that schedule is, and good night. That's a tough one.
Michael, I'm about to word vomit here, but I swear it has a point. So stay with me. Last week, I was at a casino, and there was the state championship game was on for Class A. And there was a lot of discussion about updating people on, okay, Millard South is really good. Here's why they're really good. And then different people would leave the table, and new people would be informed of why Millard South was really good. And the thing that continuously came up during that blowout win for the Patriots is there's 18 guys on this team that are going Division I, and not one of them are going to Nebraska. And there was a lot of consternation from the Nebraska people at the table about that, and some wry smiles from the Iowa people at the table about that. And I bring that up to say that I think there's, for the common fan, some heartburn over the fact that there's only one Nebraska native in this smaller Husker recruiting class. And then at the same time, you have all this history of a bunch of guys that have committed here. You've reportedly Caden Vermas is in the transfer portal as well, that are Nebraska natives, and it hasn't worked out. So, I mean, how do you balance that, like the need to recruit in-state, the lack of guys from Millard South specifically that are not at Nebraska in this class, with the fact that there's also been a lot of guys that Matt Rule has taken in his tenure here, and they haven't necessarily developed into becoming contributors.
Yeah, I thought that story was going to be that you were betting on high school football.
That's what I thought too.
Okay.
I want to know
where
the
I was hoping
degenerate.
it was going.
Yeah, he's watching the state championship at a casino.
I left that out. We did talk about the unofficial 59.5-point line that was on that game.
What did Teddy?
They didn't cover.
What did Teddy KGB say about that matchup? That's what I want to know.
Yeah. All night just checking.
Check, voodoo man.
But no, I mean it's a conversation that it's out there. It's definitely out there, and it's a tough one though. I mean, and there's some nuance there, and I think Nebraska showed, I think, in its first couple go arounds with its recruiting classes that they were more than willing to take Nebraska and Nebraska kids and evaluate Nebraska kids. And I think Matt Rule had some comment. I forget when it was. It might have been early in the season, or there was a question about it. But they needed to basically be, as time has passed, I think they've needed to get more comfortable with and be more selective with the Nebraska kids they're taking. I mean, and trust their evaluation. I mean, this year they offered Jace Reynolds off of a camp, and I know that some of those Millard South kids, some of them camped and some of them did not. A big one obviously is Jet Tamala and his situation. They got a commitment very early on from Dayton Raiola, and he stayed committed for a long time in that class. And the timing wasn't great there, but I think there's a lot of factors there. I mean, I think Nebraska is more than willing to recruit in state, and they're willing to invest the time. And that was something, especially early on, that they really kind of went out of their way to make clear that they were going to evaluate those kids. Will that change in the future? Maybe. I mean, one thing that was working against Nebraska this year, and we'll probably talk about it, is it was a very small class. I mean, they had 9 commits until they added an Australian kicker, yesterday. And so, that was also kind of working against them a little bit. And you've seen teams, I think, kind of finally recognize that there's good talent in Nebraska, and coaches that have connections in this state are kind of, recruiting those kids that Nebraska is not offering. I mean, you've got multiple kids going to Fresno State. Iowa State has, made a good living off of, recruiting Nebraska kids. And even, the kids in past classes that have gone to Iowa State, I mean, Nebraska's offered them. Maybe some later than maybe, Iowa State or Kansas State or whatever. But, I think this staff is willing to do their due diligence with it. But, I think it's just kind of a number of factors this time around that, a lot of those guys at Millard South and there's guys at other schools too that are going to go elsewhere. So that's just kind of the nature of things. And maybe that changes in 27 and 28 when you have recruiting classes that are a little bit closer to maybe what you would come to expect as being average size.
We saw Iowa State have some success in this state here with this recent class as well. Talking to Michael Bruntz, Husker 24/7 Sports here on the Husker Huddle. Bruntzy, let's talk about that class. Matt Rule talked about it earlier on Wednesday that it's a small class. Each guy was handpicked for a reason. You do look at some interesting additions, especially in areas of need. Left tackle, obviously, is an area where we've seen really be a revolving door of trying to find someone quality. Obviously, you're looking to develop a left tackle. You're also looking at a quality corner. You're looking at both an inside and outside wide receiver. What stood out to you as far as, yes, it being a smaller class, but some of the guys that could maybe impact this group sooner rather than later?
Yeah, I mean, it's the offensive line is a position where you need to be constantly kind of feeding guys into your system. You have to develop them. Very rarely is a guy going to step on campus and be ready to play. So you've got the 3 offensive linemen in this class. That's probably where I go first. I think Claude Mpuma out of Chicago, he's going to be a tackle. 6'8", 260 pounds. He's born in Africa, came to the U.S. to play basketball, has great feet. And that's the thing that kind of stands out about him. He's really athletic. And, Nebraska beat out Michigan, a number of Big Ten teams for him. 24/7 Sports has him as their 127th prospect overall in the class. But he's a guy that's going to need time. He's raw. He's still new to football, but you really like the traits. You have Rex Waterman as probably more of an inside guy. Hayden Ainsworth as well out of Mississippi coming in with his class. And I think that stands out. I think a guy that is probably being a little bit overlooked in spite of the fact that it's a small class is Luke Sorensen, the tight end out of California. Matt Rule kind of talked about him today, where he's the type of player that can play both tight end spots. They can flex him out. He's, all of 240, 250 pounds already. So he's a well put together kid that should be able to get in and block after having an offseason in a Big Ten strength program. So, Penn State, Nebraska, a lot of schools on the West Coast were interested in him too. And he's kind of a guy too that feels very arrow up. Like he the kind of book on him early on was, he's an inline blocker, but I think he's shown quite a bit of athleticism in his senior season to where, you look at what Nebraska's tight end picture is right now. You've got Heinrich Harburg going out the door. Luke Lindenmeyer is coming back. Carter Nelson is still relatively new to that position. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility that he might be able to kind of work his way in and get some playing time right away just based on need. So, those are kind of two quick thoughts. And obviously Danny Odom, I mean, he's a 5-star prospect according to 24/7 Sports, which is kind of remarkable. I mean, you get a 5-star in your class and it's kind of almost an afterthought in some ways, but number 31 prospect in the country, really physical corner, not afraid to get up and run support and tackle. I know our evaluators in Florida just absolutely loved his competitiveness, and that's what really kind of stands out about him. And a guy that has a chance to get in again, and you hope those guys play early on if they're that highly ranked, and Nebraska may have a need at corner or nickel or something like that for him to come in and play right away.
Michael, what's realistic at defensive coordinator for Nebraska as they look to fill that role at or before? I guess you could leave the door open to after January when the portal opens. I'm sure they want to get it done before that. No,
I think you want to have somebody in place as soon as possible. I mean, you want it to be the right fit, but you want that role filled. First, I mean, the January 2nd date is huge because you're going to start hosting prospects out of the portal. You need to be able to kind of paint a picture of what your defense is going to look like, how things are going to go. All that's really important. The other part of it is for the next 4 or 5 weeks, I mean, Nebraska is essentially going to be re-recruiting its own roster. Like that's another piece of it where you want to have a plan and a picture for what this defense can be in 2026. And you probably want, that coordinator to at least have an idea of kind of what he's walking into personnel wise as you're going into the portal and trying to find guys that can help you next year. So I don't think Matt Rule is going to drag his feet on this. If he finds the right guy, I think he's going to be ready to pull the trigger. I don't think this was maybe something that was, just kind of an off the cuff thing either. Like, I'm sure he's probably thought about this and what direction he wants to go. And you heard him today kind of talk about how, the attitude and effort is going to be just as important as X's and O's. So kind of finding the right personality mix, I think, is going to be really important with this hire as well.
Bruntz, we just got a little bit of time left, but I do want to get your thoughts on, yes, maybe the main priorities when it does come to the transfer portal when we get to that January 2nd date, but also your parent company, CBS, the report right before the Nebraska-Iowa game about Dylan Raiola, everyone is bracing themselves that he's going to leave. Curious what your thought is on Dylan's overall future, whether it be at Nebraska or elsewhere, and also the other one, Emmett Johnson, if he is off to the NFL draft, how important does that position become in the transfer portal market?
Yeah, I mean, with Dylan, it's going to be one of those things where it's very, nothing's going to be set in stone until it is. I mean, that's just kind of the way these conversations are, especially at quarterback with, what the fit's going to be, what a team is looking for. mean, Matt Rule was talking today about, things that Dylan kind of needs to make an improvement on going into year 3. And, as a coach, you're probably just dealing with the information that's in front of you on that particular day. And things could always change the next day. So that's kind of the nebulous nature of the transfer portal. Some of these conversations that are going on right now where it's, you can't officially go into the portal till January 2nd, but you've got a lot of these thoughts and conversations that are going on behind the scenes right now before that period anyways. As for Emmett Johnson, it felt like Matt Rule was kind of almost making the case a little bit for today for why, Nebraska might make sense next year. Yeah. And, with NIL and with the money that's available in college football, it's a much more complicated decision and conversation than it used to be. So, if you
Michael, that's especially true for a running back too, is it not? I mean, it's just given how young Emmett is, the amount of tread he still has on the tires, but I thought it was interesting that Rule said first and second round specifically, especially when Emmett's grading out maybe as high as a third rounder at this point.
Yeah, no, that definitely caught the ear a little bit too. And it is, I think the running back spot is particularly unique because it's a balance of, what are you able to make now? What kind of mileage are you going to put on with another year in college? And what kind of a risk is that if you try to go pro early and things don't pan out? So, I mean, if he does end up jumping, I think running back is a position that you have to look really hard at, adding somebody to increase competition in that group. I think they like what they have in Nelson and Mosey, but again, that's a position where it really helps, I think, to have some proven production going into a season. And, that would definitely climb the list of needs, I think, if he decides to indeed move on.
It's Michael Bruntz, Husker 24/7 Sports, going to be joining us out at Cross Train Brewing on Tuesday, December 16th, alongside Brian Christopherson, Mike Schaefer, and Lincoln R. Neal for Huskers Live on Tap. Cannot wait to be out there for that and have some great brews with our friends, including Michael Bruntz. And we'll keep the Bears-Broncos talk to a minimum. Maybe.
That's still a couple of weeks away. There's still plenty of time for the bottom to fall out.
Yeah, especially in Chicago. So we will find out. I've been there too many times. Bruntz, always appreciate you joining us, my man. Have a great rest of your day.
You too, guys. Take care.
Always appreciate Michael Bruntz stopping by. And if you didn't get enough of Michael Bruntz, boy, do I have a treat for everyone out there. Michael Bruntz, Mike Schaefer, Brian Christopherson, and because we're pretty confident that Nebraska is going to be going to a Final Four and playing in Kansas City 2 days after this event. We're going to bring in Lincoln R. Neal, who is a volleyball insider.
And if they don't,
we're still going to bring him in.
It's going to be even more interesting, honestly. So
we'll just get Lincoln to geek out about volleyball.
It's going to be really
fun. He loves it.
He's great. If you are a volleyball fan, you really don't want to miss this. I know a large percentage of what we'll be discussing will probably be football related, but that the 20 to however many minutes we spend with Lincoln are going to be fantastic. Like, that guy is top of the line, and really excited to talk with him. So.
It's Huskers Live on Tap. It's our second one. We're doing it over Cross Train Brewing in La Vista. That'll be Tuesday, December 16th with the entire group. There's going to be giveaways from Cross Train, giveaways from Omaha Steaks as well. And it's just going to be a good roundtable discussion. We'll be getting into those football topics that we're starting to really sink our teeth into right now, but we're going to be doing so with a panel that's covered this team all season long. And then, as we talked about, great volleyball expertise by one of the very best who cover not only Nebraska, but college volleyball in Lincoln R. Neal. Want to see you out there. That's Tuesday, December 16th. And, of course, while you're enjoying it, you can enjoy Omaha's best craft beer, including the Cornhusker Crusher, the official craft beer of the Huskers at Cross
Always
Train
fun to
Brewing.
go out there.
I cannot wait for this. It is mailbag time.
Oh, boy.
And we are going to get into some offseason stuff. PB from the O will lead us off. First question, second in passing yards allowed at 95th in rushing yards allowed this season. Last year was 65th in passing and 8th in rushing. Which of those two would you rather have as DC in the Big Ten? Or would it be better to have a balanced and be in the 50s?
PB from the O with the...
He's really putting us in a
come
corner
on
here. Obviously, I'd like to see balance.
Oh, really? I would rather.
You got to shut down the run.
I would rather. Yeah, I mean, I would not want to be in the 50s with both. I would rather be skew run.
Well, and let's maybe elaborate a little bit on that, because I think that is the obvious answer. But here's another reason, because you're making an offense one-dimensional. But if you're disruptive in the run game, you also have havoc wreakers that are getting in the backfield that chances are also getting after the quarterback, where you don't have to send the house, as we were talking about earlier in the show. So I think it is a twofold approach of why you want to be able to shut down the run in any respect of college football, but especially in the Big Ten, where, yes, you're taking that element away and you're eliminating those big plays, especially off of play action, but you're also having dudes that are going to be disruptive in the backfield getting after quarterbacks as well.
Yeah, I mean, to me, you can't win in the Big Ten without being good against the run, and I don't even know if 50th is good enough, to be honest. So you got to be top 50 run defense, and then we'll see what else happens after that.
Goes on to ask, for Nebraska volleyball, with the chatter about them being the best team potentially ever, is it truly championship or bust in year one for DBK, or would Husker fans be okay if they fell short again? This is a great question, because I think going into the season, Grant, I'd say if that question was brought to me, I would say give her time, because there's always, I don't care how good of a coach and what type of a program you're going into, there's always that kind of weird year one transition where there might be a part of the season where you're like, ooh, okay, there was the awkwardness of everything sort of lining up. That just has not happened. So earlier I would have said, no, you give that coach a year. Now the way this team has played, the level they're playing at, there was obviously the consecutive set streak that they had going on. It's just been domination, but a 30-0 team is a 30-0 team. It's okay to have the highest of expectations and be disappointed, because let's not forget, this team has been to the Final Four the last 2 years and has been national runner-up 2 years ago. So they've been there, done that. This team just looks like it's destined to be more. So I think it'd be hard not to be disappointed if they didn't see this thing all the way.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of national championship or bust for this team before the year. I mean, to me, you have the Globetrotters right now in that junior class, Bergen Riley, Harper Murray, Andy Jackson. I mean, this is probably I don't want to sound like I'm in too much of a bubble here, but this is probably the greatest single collection of talent on a volleyball team potentially ever.
Yeah. That's not hyperbole. There's nothing wrong with saying
the only way that isn't the case and is proven not to be the case is if they lose before they make it to the championship and win the championship.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Texas has a shot. Louisville will be tough. Mm-hmm. I mean, if they face Louisville in the Elite Eight,
should be quite the story.
that would be, tough, because you have Dan Mensky there, who was, the protege for DBK. He knows the system. I don't know if you can account for the talented players and all that sort of stuff. That's a different discussion. But like, you think about everything. I was listening last night to the coaches show on the Huskers radio network and on Boomer, and John Baylor and Danny were discussing, yes, a team can know that you have a back row attack coming from Virginia Adrian on the right side, but you still can't pull middle blockers off Becca Alec in the middle, and you have to honor her as an attacker. And then you go to the pin, and Taylor Landfair's hitting 360, or you have Harper Murray, and, oh, by the way, so like you have all these different options that, yes, you might know exactly what's coming, but there's a lot you have to honor, because Nebraska is so talented in so many different areas. And so to me, it is national championship or bust for them. There really is no sort of level that is, I think, acceptable other than that.
Well, and you're far more the volleyball expert than I am. When I just look at it from a comparison to some of the greatest teams and most dominant national championship teams that we've seen in collegiate sports, and that's what this Nebraska volleyball team is trying to accomplish. The one team, and I don't know why this always sticks out to me, that I kind of compare it to when I think of some really dominant teams, but for a lot of people that remember in college basketball, the 2012 Kentucky team with AD, they lost in December to Indiana. And then they went on, and not only did they just kind of make things laughable on most evenings. But when they got to the postseason, they got even stronger. And that's the vibe I'm getting from this Nebraska team is it's not like they're just kicking all of these teams' butts and they're doing it in such a matter-of-fact way that they don't feel challenged. No, they feel that challenge, and it just seems like they are hungrier and hungrier each time they go out. So when I think of some of those great championship teams, it's not even necessarily the record, whether you went undefeated or only had one blemish on your record. It's how you got stronger and stronger as the year progressed, and that's all I'm seeing with this Nebraska volleyball team.
No, and it really doesn't slow down, and you're glad. You're probably glad. I mean, I think I probably would have rather seen Louisville in the bracket than Wisconsin, who's playing at a pretty high level right now. It'll be very interesting to see how everything develops around you. You'll probably either see San Diego or Kansas State on Saturday night, Long Island on Friday. This is it, right? Like, you can still go 30-0 in the regular season, drop a game, and it be a failure. And that's all people will remember. And that's part of the pressure that this team is dealing with. I think I talked to Ali Czech recently, and they were kind of glad that the set streak was over because they just didn't have to deal with the pressure of that anymore. But you still have that big picture pressure of the undefeated season, the expectations that you're facing. And that's where Danny Busby-Kelly comes in, trying to keep things light still and fun for everybody in the midst of all that. It's how you have to deal with that pressure. And now you're at its zenith here. This is the peak of all that pressure right now, and you have to power through these next 2 weeks to accomplish your goal.
Eric has our last question here. It says, how the season played out for the last few games under Latif impact Raiola's asking price point for NIL next year?
Hard telling not knowing the original number.
Exactly.
The hard part.
You and I talked about this on Husker Hindsight on Sunday after the Iowa loss. And my whole point was, whatever Raiola's decision is when it comes to a financial standpoint, it's not going to have to do with the money that goes into his pocket. To me, this is going to be all about the type of money that you essentially can surround yourself. And that's not saying he takes, the old NFL cliche of the hometown discount or anything. But I think what Dylan has acquired since he's been at Nebraska has been more than enough. I think for Dylan to have the type of confidence that he can have that junior year that'll make him not only he's going to be draft eligible, but it'll make him a guy that could be one of the top quarterbacks in the country. He's got to be very, very confident that he's got the guys in front and the guys around him that are going to allow him to have that type of year 3 jump. And Matt Rule even talked about it today. You got to see that no more are you that young, sort of inexperienced quarterback. You got to take it upon yourself. Now it's not only the accountability of the guys around you, but it's accountability on yourself. And that comes with rehabbing from this injury as well. So there's now the big boy britches. Yeah. Not saying that Dylan didn't have that before, but now it really matters. So what type of the NIL price to me is not necessarily what Dylan gets in his pocket. It's what type of resources they're willing to put around him so he feels that this is the place that he is going to get the most out of that year 3, that draft eligible year that he needs.
Yeah, we'll see how it plays out there. I mean, Matt Rule was asked about that. TJ Latif and Raiola, is there a chance they keep both on the roster? He really wouldn't comment on that, which makes sense. I wouldn't either. Look, I don't think there was enough that TJ Latif did down the stretch to make Dylan feel like this was a place where he would not be the alpha coming in.
I don't think if we know that I'll put it this way.
There might be a quarterback battle come fall camp.
I don't
they're
think
both on the team, but Dylan is clearly far and away the guy.
I think if there's a depth chart right now, if they were both
Everybody
coming back for
healthy,
sure, Dylan is 1, TJ's 2. This isn't an open battle in my opinion.
Yeah, and it could, like I was saying, it could develop into that by the time we get to fall camp, just because there's a guy on the roster who has started games before and has played at least a middling level. But I don't know if it changes a lot about his asking price, especially the way TJ Latif. He wasn't horrendous up until that second half. He already had that hamstring injury against Iowa. That's the only time he played really, truly poorly. But I mean, he definitely didn't play well enough to make you think, Nebraska would be better off with him in the starting role, all things considered and everyone healthy.
Right.
Well, folks, it's time now for our player interview segment of the show, and here's Nick Hanley talking with Michael Booker III.
It is Huskers All Access, brought to you by Access Bank, here for a reason. Nick Hanley here with Michael Booker III. And Michael, as we've been talking to a lot of the seniors and making that final John, onto Memorial Stadium. I don't know if you ever get a moment in the season where it slows down to kind of collect yourself on what this career has meant. But as you get closer to that Iowa game, what has been going through your head right now?
Well, honestly, like what you were saying, like I feel like there hasn't been a time for me just to stop and like reflect on like my whole journey here. But there are times when I look back and I'm like, man, I've been through a lot, and just to see that my time is slowly like getting to that point where it's like I won't be playing here no more. It means a lot. Like I feel like it's bitter. It really is bittersweet because this is an awesome place. Like I couldn't for myself ask for anything better when it comes to a program where I could be a football player, be an athlete, and also be a person in the community. Like it's just, it's such a blessing for me to be here. So for it to be slowly winding down, I haven't got to the point where I can just sit there with my thoughts and my feelings, but I know for sure it's going to be emotional. So.
Speaking on your impact on the community, you were named the male recipient of the Jackie Robinson Award for Nebraska, which obviously goes beyond just being a solid athlete, but more of what you've done throughout the community. And coming from Texas, too, and really making a home very quickly here in Lincoln. I know your father obviously was a very good player here, too, but what drove just that passion to be a great steward of this football program?
So when I came here, I was born here. My dad played here. I had roots here, but I never really lived here. But for me to come back, I felt like it was something that was like, it was destined for me. Like I feel like this was something that was my calling. And I came in here with a goal. Like I had 3 priorities for myself. Obviously, first was education, because I feel like that takes me in the long run in life. And then it was my community service. I knew that just on my stance on how I came here, I knew I probably wasn't going to be a factor in how I played football. I knew I wasn't going to be the factor on the field as much as I wanted to be. So my priority coming in was service work. I wanted to do as much as I can with the time that I had here. And then it was football. So my 3 priorities was education, service work, and football. And me upholding those priorities and balancing them out with each other really kind of just made it so that I've had a place here. And and it was something that I conditioned myself to so much to the point where it became part of my character. And so much of my character, it was just I kept doing community service, and I always making sure that I was in the community with schoolwork, or just campus orgs and stuff like that. So I put myself out there, and I feel like that kind of just led to me, getting the award that I did. So.
And it's rare because you see a lot of guys when they get into any sport, whether it's football, basketball, volleyball, you're usually thinking about the athlete part first, student second, and then even the community stuff, maybe even a distant third. At what point in your career, I don't even know if it was as early as high school, what point in your career did you think where you prioritize what you just said there?
Yeah, I would say it had to be before I came here. I did come here with a drive to amplify my my service work, but I've always been a person where I wanted to lend myself. I want to be a person where I could be a lending hand to somebody. That was always just my nature. I always wanted to do something for others. I wanted to put others before myself. I feel like I'm just a very empathetic person. I feel like that really applied to when it came to service and community work. I feel like that's just something that I really love. I can't really put into words on what it is, but I feel it's just a love, and it's a feeling that I have when it comes to just being there for others.
That's amazing. Before we let you go, I wanted to get your thoughts on the football field side of this too. I know you've been a big contributor of special teams as well this season, getting ready to take on Iowa. But again, just going through those last snaps, those last practices with your guys too. What type of emotion goes into this type of week for this entire team with Iowa compared to maybe even some of the previous weeks and what you remember over the past couple of years?
Yeah, I would say this week really, I feel like it's very different because, again, it is my last real in-season week. It's Iowa. It's a big game, big rival game. It's always meant a lot to me because, like I said, Nebraska's been it's been a root place for me. But I don't think I've ever been as happy as I am now these last practices. I think it's just something that I've been able to just take it in. I have to know that I have to enjoy it. I'm cherishing every moment. I'm cherishing every rep. I'm cherishing everything that's hard, every sweat that drops on the turf, everything that is just maybe might be inconvenient to others, and maybe even to me. And sometimes in my career when playing football, but now it's just I'm in a sense where I'm just being as grateful as I can for everything, like every smell, every sight, every sound. Like it's just like I'm just so happy. Like just to even be here talking with you, just to be like going through my last lifts. It's awesome. I love it. Like I couldn't be a happier person right now. So.
Well, congratulations on all the work you've done. Thank you for spending time with us. Impressive young man right here. That is Michael Booker. This is Huskers All Access, brought to you by Access Bank, here for a reason. Awesome stuff with Michael Booker III. And now people know when I gave him the
what, that he gets to
the
hang out with
rousing
Reese
review. Yes, just what for a young person early in his college career to make that his priority is just rare, and it was genuine.
Yeah,
and that Jackie Robinson award for the male athlete at University of Nebraska, I think is just more proof of the type of work. It's one thing to say what you want to do and how you want to be an impact in the community. It's another thing to follow it by action. And Michael Booker III, what an impressive young man. Just great to have a chance to talk with him. And then when we were done, what you didn't see there, when we were done, not only was he making sure he knew our name, but he wanted to know our last name and everything. And just kind of stuck around and talked for a little bit too. Just a tremendous guy. And that's, I'll say this before we get into our score predictions of championship weekend here, Grant. The one thing, and I want to thank Keith Mann and the University of Nebraska athletic department for allowing us to have those opportunities week in and week out to talk to these student athletes. And we talked to a lot of guys, some multiple times, starters to guys that maybe you didn't know much about. But I can say this, and this goes to Matt Rule and the type of program that he's ran. And I know, hey, you're always measured by the record. We get that.
Sure.
We understand that, especially with the amount of money that you're getting paid to. But I will say this, with that group of guys that we had a chance to interact with all season long, some of the most polite, stand-up types of individuals that you will meet, shaking your hand, asking you what your name is. Even there were guys like Emmett Johnson, we weren't even getting ready to talk to him.
Yep.
We were just near him. He comes right over and shakes our hand and introduces himself. Just having a chance, guys like Rocco and Henry Latufsky and Luke Lindemeyer, guys, Heinrich Harbor, guys we had a chance to talk to on multiple occasions. You feel like you got to know him a little bit too. And, Justin Evans, we were always giving him crap because he's one of those guys notoriously doesn't love to talk to the media, but when he does, he's fantastic at it.
Yeah.
Just really cool to have a chance to interact with those guys, even at a personal level. And that was one of the real bright spots. And I think I could speak for you as well. One of the joys of what we had a chance to do this year.
No doubt. And I second everything that you said. Again, a huge thank you to Keith Mann and Nebraska Athletics. It really made that process this year very, very, very smooth. So you said it all.
All right, we transition over to championship week. We're looking at the Power 4 championship games. Yeah, it's usually on this day. It's a multi-screen type of day because you might be a college football sicko. You want to get into some of those Group of 5 championship games as well. But we're looking at the Group of 4 because that's the time that we have to do. Starting at 11 a.m., pretty interesting one in the Big 12. Sure. Texas Tech, I shouldn't say hosting, but Texas Tech being the home team in this one, taking on BYU in the Dr. Pepper Big 12 championship game. And Texas Tech now finds itself in the top 4 of the college football playoff rankings that were unveiled on Tuesday. And looking at this game with BYU, you've got two 11-1 teams. BYU ranked 11th, as I mentioned, Tech rated 4. We're looking at a pretty big number, though, for Texas Tech, 12.5, as they are favored in this one. 49.5 is your over-under. Question is, with now even more attention on Texas Tech, do they finish this thing strong? They're not going anywhere. They're not going to play themselves out of the college football playoff. But can they be one of those top teams to get a bye in the college football playoff? A win, and whether you win by 1 or you blow them out, either way, you're in a pretty good position right now. If you're the Red Raiders.
You're playing for a playoff bye. That's pretty much it. You're probably safe either way, I think, at this point. And I'll be interested to see how this all shakes. Kalani Sitake is back.
Yep.
We know that. That
was a big move that happened this week.
That is a big boost for BYU. It's tough to beat a team twice, so I think this game will be more competitive than the line indicates. But Texas Tech has got the better players and will win this game, I think. And again, 12.5 is a lot. So we'll say Texas Tech wins this one. High-scoring affair, 31-28.
I do have Texas Tech winning this one. I'm with you, though. I think BYU covers that big number, 12.5 points. I think you're going to see some points. Normally, if this was A&M or Texas, this being played in Dallas at AT&T Stadium, I would say, oof, going to be a heavy Texas Tech crowd. I don't know, out of all of the Texas Division I football programs, that Tech brings this massive amount of fans, but they'll have plenty there. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think it's going to be that true home field advantage like you would if it was Texas or Texas A&M playing in a venue like this. That being said, though, I just think they're a better team. I'm going to take Texas Tech to win this one by a score of 38-31. And Texas Tech will get that first round bye. Moving on to the afternoon game. This is another one of interest. It's nothing new seeing Georgia and Alabama in an SEC championship game, but what is different about this one is each team kind of has, I wouldn't say different identities, but have had moments in the season where maybe you question if they're as dominant as they have been when these two teams have met before on this stage. Alabama at 10-2. Georgia is at 11-1. Georgia number 3 in the college football playoff rankings. Alabama at number 9. Georgia is just a slight 2.5-point favorite in this game. Grant, I could see this one going either way. I'm curious where you're leaning on this one.
I'm heavy Georgia. I have a hard time believing that this Georgia team will lose to Alabama twice in the same season. And Alabama really has not left a lot of great impressions here of late either. So I like Georgia. Look, I think it's probably going to be close. You can't really screw around, though, if you're Bama. I mean, you can't afford to do that in this game. And we'll say Georgia wins this one. We'll go field goal. We'll say field goal. Georgia wins 24-21. But I like Gunnar Stockton and the Dogs.
I like Georgia the way that they have really played the month of November as opposed to where Alabama has. Even in Alabama's wins, it's been a little bit more dicey. Kind of what we're talking about with Nebraska volleyball. It's those teams that we talk about that put themselves in a position to win a national championship. How are you finishing the season? And I think we've talked about these teams and personnel, all throughout the year in some of our predictions, but I think Georgia's just playing better football right now. And again, beating a team like that twice is going to be pretty darn tough too. I think that Georgia is just a better fit in this matchup too. I'm gonna take Georgia to win it 27-17. I think they cover by 10. Moving on.
This is the biggest one.
I cannot wait for this game. And sorry, ACC, multi-screen game, mind you, but I think a lot of attention is going to be on.
Yeah, let's do the ACC one first.
Okay, let's do the ACC one. This is the one that I feel like the minority
All right, Virginia.
audience.
All right, there we go. There's the end.
If we're looking at a 70-30 audience-wise on the 7 o'clock game, I think 30% is going to be this. That's going to be the minority watching ACC, while the majority is watching the Big Ten Championship. So we'll go with the ACC first. Virginia, 17th ranked. Against Duke, a 7-5 team. The number is really Virginia barely by 3.5. I still think that Duke is one of those teams, kind of that fly in the ointment. We've seen this before where Northwestern the one year made it to the Big Ten championship game. You're like, okay, cool. If they win, if you get that was back when you get the AQ and everything. I just think that Virginia is in a position where they should be able to do enough to win this football game. This isn't a dominant Virginia team. It's kind of a grimy Duke team, if you will. I'll take Virginia to win sort of a grimy type of game, 24-20 in favor of the Cavaliers.
Yeah, I think this is to be a bit more spread out. This is a team that I do feel confident in Virginia beating twice in the same season in Duke. And you have the weird fluky loss to Wake Forest where Danny Kaelin had to come in and play quarterback for much of that game. So that one's hanging out there. The NC State loss pretty much at the beginning of the season. But otherwise, this has been a really solid football team in Virginia. And they're not the best team in the ACC. I think that still is Miami. But they'll win this one. They'll get the AQ. I think it'll be a bit disparate again. So we'll say 28-14, Virginia over Duke.
The other 7 o'clock game, this is a big one. Taking place, again, as we talked about in the Big Ten Championship game, Indiana and Ohio State. Interesting metrics in this one. Ohio State's a 5.5-point favorite, but if you look at the win predictability on ESPN and the FPI, has Indiana slightly, if we're looking at this 51-49 split as far as their probability to win. So metrics slightly favor Indiana. Betting line favors Ohio State. I can't wait for this one because Ohio State, what more do you need to say about them? And I think their win against Michigan was fantastic, where it looked like, is Michigan going to do this again when it was 10-9? Julian Sayin got off to a tough start. all he did was stay composed and look like a 3-year starter. I thought he managed that offense extremely well. And then when we look at Mendoza, we're looking at 2 Heisman Trophy candidates here too. Mendoza's been fantastic. I was curious if you could replace a Curtis O'Rourke and have the same type of success. Give Curt Cignetti and his staff credit. Not only did they find as good, if not a better replacement, he has been awesome. But this Indiana defense has my attention. They've been really, really good as well. Indiana just feels like there is nothing you can put in front of them that is going to make them blink. I'm calling for the upset in this one. I'm going to say Indiana gets it done. They're a 5.5-point dog. I think they're going to win a crazy game in the Big Ten championship. They win this one 31-28 walk-off field goal.
So I'm with you on this one. I don't know if it's as crazy as you think. I think I'm on Indiana bigger than you. I think Indiana might win this game by double digits. Wow. And that's going out on a limb a little bit, but I think there's a lot on the line because this is a sort of game where Indiana sort of gets the gift of having a chip on its shoulder because everybody continues to doubt the logo as opposed to the body of work. Because if you look at the body of work, there's one team here that you trust more, I think, and that's Indiana. Like, you get it. You didn't necessarily play your best against Penn State. But you had the moment when you needed it.
Yep.
You got it. But you went on the road and you beat Oregon. That's a really tough place to play. It's a tough thing to do for a team that's in the Eastern time zone to go all the way out west and win. Tough thing to do. They did that early in the season. I mean, that's a better win than Ohio State has. Like, the next closest win that Ohio State has that would maybe even be considered equally relevant is Texas in week 1. That was at home. I mean, you can maybe throw Illinois in there or Washington.
Yeah.
But, like, the two teams do not have the same level of comparison. And I think I think Indiana has the better coach too. So now the one thing where this game intrigues me and where it really kind of feeds into the Mendoza Heisman race. Mendoza, you look at him, I think a lot of scouts, you're starting to hear the reports on him on the report card is that he's pretty much already a pro-style quarterback, and a lot of his traits it's easy to see how they will translate to the NFL level. Well, he's facing an NFL defense conducted by Matt Patricia. So that's, to me, where I'm most keyed in on for this game is a guy who is supposed to translate to the NFL level at a high level going up against essentially an NFL defense with NFL-style players and an NFL defensive coordinator. That is where this game will be decided. You have a psycho on the Indiana coaching sideline, and I'm going with the psycho. Indiana wins this game 24-16.
We love psycho victories. Good point, though, about what Mendoza will be up against. I think that is a huge X factor of what Matt Patricia can try to scheme against this outstanding Indiana offense. All right, that is going to do it for us. We will be back next week. I'm sure we'll have more to talk about when it comes to Nebraska's roster. Maybe
Nebraska Creighton will be in rear view.
That's right. We got a huge basketball game coming up with Nebraska and Creighton on Sunday. We look forward to talking about that. Probably have a basketball guest on as well. And we'll see how Nebraska volleyball fared in their first weekend of the NCAA first and second round tournament in Lincoln. For Grant Hansen, I am Nick Hanley. Appreciate you checking out Husker Huddle. Until next week, enjoy the rest of your week.